One to share the century's dawn. A golden age will reign, where the spirit of competition burns so bright in the eternal flame.
It's this flame Sydney is desperate to see burning in the year 2000. The Games themselves would last for less than 3 weeks, but hosting the Olympics would represent 10 years of time, effort and a lot of money. Just how much is riding on this for Sydney?
Well, obviously there's a lot. I mean, the economic report released by the Premier indicates that it's worth somewhere about $7 billion in new investment, about 1.5 million additional tourists, 150,000 direct and indirect jobs, so there's a lot at stake.
The physical requirements for the Games are enormous. Homebush Bay is the first big-ticket item for Sydney 2000. $300 million worth of sporting facilities, and the Olympic spirit is ensuring the work proceeds with industrial harmony. For construction and development companies, the benefits are obvious.
I think for the Australian economy, and of which the construction industry is a major part, it will be a fantastic shot in the arm. I think it'll be a circuit breaker in terms of the confidence of the community and the economy, and therefore the construction industry can only benefit from that.
How big a project would you say it is? How would you describe it?
It's been a fantastic project. It's big in terms of dollars, it's big in terms of complexity, but it's also very big in terms of personalities. There's been some fantastic times on the project where we have met and mixed with heroes of bygone days and potential new heroes of the year 2000. It's been a fantastic project to be involved in.
How desperate are we to get these Games?
Well, we're very keen. I mean, I spoke to one of the people yesterday who's on the list for the 10 richest men in Australia, and he was talking to me about what a great thing it would be for Australia. He said, we're so much into recessionary mode of thinking. And he said more than outweighing just the value of the Games itself would give us the necessary reason to get up and get on with life.
We all share the same sun, the same dream, the same earth, the same air.
We take it right up to the wire until the announcement's made by Samaranch on the 23rd. But we will be continuing right through to the last break when they come out for afternoon tea. On the 23rd, we will be there, talking to them, reminding them of Sydney, ensuring that they remember us and the friendships established.
But when it comes down to the wire, it will be a matter of moments. A single announcement which will leave Sydney either victorious or vanquished.
The decision is...
I think about it a lot. And quite often my stomach turns just thinking about it.
In Melbourne, they know this feeling only too well. 3 years ago, they were sweating on the announcement for the 1996 Olympics.
Describe for me what it was like in Tokyo.
It was pretty frightening. It was like really sitting for your VCE exam, I dare say. We were all really highly trained athletes, but not athletes. I mean, we were ready to win. We felt we could smell victory. People said to us, look, you know, your hopes could be dashed. But we didn't really listen to any of that. We believed we were going to win, and that was the way it was.
You work extraordinarily hard. I mean, you don't sleep for a week, basically, everyone. And then you make your final presentation, which has this enormous adrenaline high. And then you've got to sit and wait. There is nothing more you can do. There's no one you can talk to because they're all locked up. So you wait. And they have various entertainments and so on, which in the circumstances and with the tension, it's excruciating. I mean, sitting watching, in our case, an ancient Japanese musical ensemble. I mean, people were just about screaming. They wanted to get on.
74 IOC members visited Melbourne in the lead-up to the Tokyo decision. Like Sydney, they all gave the city their stamp of approval. Like Sydney, Samaranch described it as the best bid he'd ever seen. In Tokyo, the Melbourne team felt they'd captured the momentum, and they were supremely confident, even moments before the announcement.
What we found is that variously the IOC members would like to to give some sort of an indication to their particular friends of how they've gone. So you have the extraordinary view of 90 or so people walking out onto a platform, perhaps hanging onto their ear or patting their nose, giving a signal to someone that they might have done reasonably well. So I think at one stage, everyone in the hall believes that their city has won.
The International Olympic Committee has awarded the 1996 Olympic Games to the city of Atlanta.
I burst into tears personally. I mean, it was just such a disappointment. Such a disappointment.
Atlanta.
And the people of Melbourne felt the same. The Olympics had come to mean much more than the Games. They were to be the panacea, the cure for what was then Melbourne's deepening recession. If ever there was a project to symbolise what winning the Olympics could mean for a city, it was Melbourne's Docklands. Behind me was to have been the athletes' village, but it was just a small part of a giant urban development designed to change the face of Melbourne. When the bid failed, the project faltered. Without the push of the Olympics, it will be years before it gets off the ground.
It was a bit like Darling Harbour for Sydney, only bigger. It would have given us a chance to perhaps do a tourist precinct down there and build, as I believed, a new housing area for Melbourne. I think it was very important.
With hindsight, how would you describe the bidding process?
Oh, there's lots of words you could use. Some of them would be offensive, some would be fair comment, some would be sour grapes. I think people find it hard to contend with the process. There's 94 or 5 people who have a vote. There's race and colour and religion flowing through it. It is very, very difficult to get a handle on what makes those people make decisions in the end.
And there are no guarantees?
I don't think there's any guarantees, no. Some describe it to me a bit like a pre-selection for parliamentary office, where if everybody added up the numbers of promises they'd had, you had 600 or 700 people voting. They are good at making promises, yes.
The spirit of sport, the spirit of sharing, the spirit of striving, the spirit of caring, the spirit of going that extra mile.
It has to be said that Sydney's chances are rated higher than Melbourne's. The city is seen as more inviting, and it is the 3rd time in a row that Australia has vied for the Games. That's what's bolstering the hopes of the Sydney team.
The more you get involved with the process, the more you simply get caught up with winning. And the same as everybody else who's involved from both sides of politics, and whether it be Gough Whitlam in terms of the lobbying team or whoever, it is all about winning.
It's the Aussies, I think, for another gold medal if they can hang on for another 100 metres. Go now, Jamie!
The oldest saying in sport is that it's not about winning, it's about how you play the game. But in the race for the Olympic Games, the Sydney team knows it's exactly the opposite.
There is no second prize. It's all over in 1 minute. And you're either in there as the winner, or you've just wasted the last 3 years with all of the money, all of the effort.
Thanks very much, Karen. Welcome, Asia, to Monaco, this fabulous, fabulous town, this fabulous, where anything can happen town. And in a few moments' time, Juan-Antonio Samaranch, IOC head honcho, will walk down the steps of the casino, pluck a $20 gambling chip, break it open and read the next town that's going to get the next fabulous set of Olympic Games in the year 2000. It's a very heady atmosphere here, Roy. I'm bubbling. I'm very, very excited. A moment or two ago, I saw Brooke Shields in her gear approach Juan, and words were exchanged, and I think there might be a little bit of hanky-panky. It's an old term, but I think you get what I mean going on afterwards. I saw Juan not so long ago with a very big dog that I brought over from Sydney, Australia. He loves Australian animals, he loves Australian wildlife, but I have to say the koalas are going elsewhere, the plats are going elsewhere, the platypuses are going elsewhere. You can have the big dog, Juan. It's more your sort of speed. Don't you think, Roy?
Oh, well, you're right in saying there's excitement here. It is electric. I bumped into Bruce Baird just a few moments ago. He's just beside himself. I bumped into Roddy McGeoch, and I was there. I saw them come out of their rooms this morning, and they're both obviously nude as you spend most of your time naked over here, as you've probably gathered, Karen, not that you can tell from where you are, but HU myself just got rugged up because everyone, wherever you go, is just nude. It's that sort of place. No wonder people like coming here. I bumped into Bruce and Rod, as I mentioned, and they had clenched between their buttocks Sydney 2000 chips that you could take to the casino and use for betting. So Sydney has gone to, I mean, it's left no expenses spared. I mean, having struck special chips just to gamble here so that someone might see in the casino, oh, there's a Sydney 2000 chip. Think Sydney. Everyone is thinking Sydney. That's the amazing thing. We're brimming with confidence this end, as you can probably gather.
And as we saw Bruce and Rod walk away, we did see a big yellow river running down the leg and out of the trousers, and that made people think Sydney as well. Curiously enough, after they walked away, it formed the 5 rings of the Olympic movement.
That funny electric sort of wriggly snake.
Yeah. We say thank you, Sydney, and welcome you back in a few moments' time after we've seen Juan and the chip, and we know who's going to have the games of the year 2000. It's so exciting.
It's ours.
Back to you, Karen.
The sights are famous all around the world, and now right in the middle of Sydney, another dream is coming to life. Most of the events for the Sydney Olympics will be held here, a huge waterfront site at Homebush Bay, just 14 kilometres from the city centre. The facelift began 2.5 years ago, and there have certainly been some changes since then. And there's obviously still a lot to be done around here, but believe it or not, by the year 2000, this land, about 650 hectares altogether, will have been transformed into one of the most sophisticated sporting venues that's ever been built. And athletes in 14 different sports are going to be running and jumping and throwing around here, sweating it out, trying to win gold. And much of the adrenaline will be pumping right here. This is where the main stadium will be. All the track and field events, with 80,000 people cheering them on. And there won't just be fireworks on the track. This will also be the venue of the spectacular opening and closing ceremonies. The Athletes' Village will also be in the complex. The first time in Olympic history, all the athletes will be housed in the one village. Just a short walk, and competitors will be ready to take part in football, fencing, gymnastics, swimming, archery, and more than half a dozen other sports being held here at Olympic Park. All the other events are within 30 minutes of here. The rowing and canoeing at Penrith Lakes, the road cyclists racing through the beautiful bushland of the Royal National Park, equestrian at Eastern Creek, and the shooting at Holsworthy. And then there's Sydney's renowned harbour. While the yachts sail their way to Olympic glory, a host of other sports are going to be taking place right under the shadow of the harbour bridge, including the basketball, weightlifting, table tennis, judo, boxing and wrestling. It'll be a fantastic spectacle, and for the very first time in Olympic history, all the events will take place in the host city, Sydney, ready and waiting for the 2000 Olympics.
And now let's take a look at the highlights from Australia's oldest city, Sydney.
So it is with a deep sense of honour and an awareness of this historic, unbroken relationship that Australia presents the candidacy of Sydney to host the Games of the 27th Olympiad at the dawn of the new millennium.
You may be asking why an 11-year-old girl is speaking to you today. Well, the reason is that I have a very important message for all of you from the children of Sydney and Australia. Thanks to the Sydney 2000 bid and your visits to our schools, children like me now know a lot more about the Olympic movement. 3 years ago, my school friends and I thought that the Olympics were only about sport.
From the government and people of Australia, I bring the message that the Sydney bid has the support of all Australians.
Now, it's no surprise the IOC members have arrived, And for all of you with the bidding cities, now you know what it's like to wait before you're called up for the big race. So now it's time to announce the city that will be the official host in the year 2000. Boris Quadro, will you help me?
Yes, he's just making the point here that while that film was on, that the members of the IOC, 89 members from all around the world who've decided while we've been here, including, of course, Prince Albert of Monaco, they've decided who's going to get those games in the year 2000. They're placed right alongside the royal box. Prince Regent applauding them, Prime Minister and Mrs. Keating.
Ainsi que Donna vient de le dire, il ne reste plus que quelques instants avant le moment fatidique. Et j'aimerais maintenant inviter à nous rejoindre ici sur cette scène dans l'ordre Maître François Carrard, directeur général du CIO.
Maître François Carrard, Director of the International Olympic Committee.
Madame Anita de France, scrutateur, membre du CIO aux États-Unis.
Anita de France, member of the IOC in the United States.
Maître Marc Hodler, président de la Commission des finances, membre du CIO en Suisse.
Maître Mark Hodler, Chairman, Finance Committee, IOC.
He's one of the two men who know the result.
You made the point earlier, Bruce, that in fact there are only two men, including Samaranch does not know, even though he's the president, he's the influence, but he doesn't know.
And here's the other man, the Senegalese judge.
They were the scrutineers, they took all the votes today.
Le quatrième vice-président du CIO, Dr Kim Un-Yong, membre du CIO en Corée.
Dr. Kim Un-Young, fourth vice
Now
president.
the vice presidents are being introduced, which will include Kevin Gosper.
There are 4 vice presidents in the International Olympic Committee.
Membre du CIO en Russie.
Third vice president, Mr. Vitaly Smirnov, IOC member in Russia.
These men are all candidates to take over from Mr. Samaranch when he does
Monsieur
retire.
Kevin Gosper, membre du CIO en Australie.
Second vice president, Mr. Kevin Gosper in Australia.
Et le premier vice-président, Monsieur Jianyang He, membre du CIO en République populaire de Chine.
First vice chairman, and in the Chinese way, Mr. He
So China and Australia both represented here in these vice presidents. And now the biggest moment of the lot.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Mesdames et messieurs,
the president of the International Olympic Committee.
le président du Comité international olympique.
His Excellency Juan-Antonio Samaranch.
Not a controversial figure, but clearly a man respected, a
Ladies
man
and
who
gentlemen,
it's believed
please
could
rise
actually
for the Olympic anthem.
decide this.
The International Olympic Committee wishes to thank the 5 bidding cities, Beijing, Berlin, Istanbul, Manchester, and Sydney, for their efforts in presenting the bids and also promoting the Olympic movement. We really regret that there is only one winner, and the winner is the winner is Sydney, Australia.
What a great moment. Well, so well deserved, Ray.
Out of courtesy of the Chinese, of course, I congratulate the Australians.
What a marvellous moment for our country. We have such a tradition in the Olympic arena, and to think that we're here tonight
$27 million that we wondered about, in fact $60 million altogether to get it from one of the Australian cities in the last 3 bids, has finally paid off with this marvelous occasion.
Money extremely well spent. The Prime Minister is one of the 3 Prime Ministers here today, and he's the only one who has left with Mrs Keating, and I think they've gone down now to join the Sydney contingent.
Yes, they've left the Royal Box. Have done so much to make this possible.
Well, the feeling today was that it was the best presentation and that our chances were growing hour by hour. Marvellous scenes back home and here.
But you could never know, could you? That was the point about it. You could never quite know, of course, what was going to happen. This was the vote that they couldn't call. 875 days the Australians like Rod McGeoch have spent trying to get this thing up at $27 million.
And dare I say, I think it's also a victory for the International Olympic Committee as the Prime Minister, Mr Keating, joins the group. And there's the reaction again.
Oh, yes, there's Rod McGeoch with his Aussie hat.
He's a Cobra hat.
And the New South Wales Premier, John Fahey, can't quite believe it, can they? They've got to try and restore some order here. It's not just the Australians who've gone mad, but I think it's a very popular decision, actually.
The official contract will be signed.
What they have to do now, ladies and gentlemen, is sign the contracts, basically signing $1 billion of Australian money, Bruce, for these games in the year 2000.
It's going
to give us all so much to look forward to.
So much. This is a very historic day.
Président de la Commission des Finances.
And there's Neville Griner as well. In fact, was the Premier who launched this bid, has since retired from politics. But he has every right to feel very happy about this as well. Frank Sartor, of course, the Mayor of Sydney, comes up to sign it. And the Premier, I would believe. There's Graham Lovett, who has been in charge of the facilities preparations. He's put John Coates, there you go, John Coates.
So John Coates and Frank Sartor will come up and sign the contract, which officially says that Sydney takes responsibility for the games in the year 2000. It might be 7 years away, but I can feel it already, can't you?
You can indeed feel it already, can't you?
And look at the scenes in the street.
Well, we were told that they expected 10,000 or so in Manchester today, but we've got many more than that in Sydney, I think. A gift from Frank Sartor, there you go. Frank Sartor is giving Mr Samaranch an Aussie koala. What a great moment that is. Paul Kenny behind him, John Fahey there, the New South Wales Premier, and all those peach T-shirts down the front. They can't quite believe it. Well, we thought our hearts were ruling us today, Bruce, when we said that we thought Australia could win it, but there you go, that's marvellous stuff.
And the reactions back in Sydney and right around Australia. And the team here are watching the reactions in Sydney and responding.
All right, we might just let this go on, Bruce. Why don't we just have a look at the pictures? We have to go down. We've got the great pleasure now of interviewing the Australian victors. So we'll let Australia have a look at this and the activity inside the hall, and we'll go down and talk to them.
Pour leur hospitalité et leur parfaite organisation.
And it is official. The city that will host the games in the year 2000, that will usher in a new millennium, is Sydney, Australia. For Boris Quadro and myself, we thank you. And for those cities who did not win, as an Olympian, I would like to say that I wish you could all win, stay in for the good fight. This was the most extraordinary bidding process in the history of the modern Olympics. Thank you for taking part. Goodbye, farewell, and au revoir. Boris Quadro and me, congratulations to Sydney.
So bright. Share the spirit of the
Well, you can see what's happening. The fireworks are blazing over the top of the Opera House. They've been flashing signs, we won. I'll tell you what, there must have been about half of these people in here won't admit it, but they weren't disbelievers.
Oh, yeah, but, you know, I've got a wonderful staff of 40-odd people there, and half of them are at home. I'm sad about that, looking forward to getting back to be with them. And I always said if we won that the first words I should utter are for my staff, and I mean that.
Right, now tell us what went through your mind again today. There was just no way. When we talked to Olympic experts here, they said it's too close, we can't pick this one.
Well, I thought we'd, and I said to you yesterday, Ray, privately, that I've always thought that there were too many votes being counted for Beijing that actually weren't there. I was slightly wrong because it went to the 4th round and there were only a couple of votes in it.
What do you think did it then? I mean, there was so much talk about the push that Mr. Samaranch may have, and the fact that it was a juggernaut called China.
I think we campaigned well, but I think in the end the popularity of Australia really got us there.
The popularity, it was a very popular vote, wasn't it, here? I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's a popular place. I mean, it's a wonderful place, Australia, and, you know, the sort of support we had. I mean, where else can you raise $15 million in the middle of a recession like that? I mean, the Australians deserve to have the Games.
Right, I think as well, we understand there's a bigger crowd in Sydney now, Darling Harbour, than either in Beijing or in Manchester.
Well, that's good. I'm pleased to hear that. I hope they have a great time.
Bruce, you've got John Coates, another one of those we need to thank.
Yes,
Thanks,
the
Rod.
President of the Australian Olympic Committee, the man who just signed the document. John, today in your presentation you talked about the athletes and what Sydney can do for the athletes. I'm sure every athlete in Australia right now is rejoicing.
It's going to be a tremendous legacy for our athletes and those of the world. We've won it on technical merit, which we always thought we would. It's a bit closer than I thought it was, though.
Your faith was never dim, though, because I know that all along you stood firm and you felt we had the numbers.
Oh, we thought we had around the 30 in the first round. That's what we had. I was a bit surprised, as it turns out, that some of the Istanbul and Berlin votes didn't come to us, and it took until Manchester went out. But we got there.
We sure did. I believe we were behind going into the last round, and we've ended up winning by 2 votes.
We were behind by 3 into the last round, so we had to get 8 of Manchester's 11 to win.
Tell us about some of the competitions that now may occur in Australia in the 7 years leading up.
The 7 years leading up, we are obligated in every sport to host a world championship or the like to prepare. Just for Australian sport alone, from the Olympic Committee, there will be another $100 million that we will be able to inject into sport. We will have a full team in every sport in Atlanta. And obviously we'll have a full team when we host the Games. The impact on Australian sport will be what it was for Melbourne in 1956.
I've gone a little bit crazy. I don't know what to say. I just wish I had a shotgun here so I could let people know in the nicest possible way with a big bloody bit of lead up the date that Sydney has won the Olympic Games in the year 2000. I don't believe it. I thank you, Sydney. Thank you, Asia. Thank you, Juan, for giving us the Games. It's a tremendous moment. It's history-making, right?
It is
You must
just
feel
amazing.
very proud.
The atmosphere here is... Shut up! The atmosphere here is just amazing. It is fantastic. People have gone crazy. They're just talking. I said, shut up. It's really hard to concentrate if you don't mind. Sorry, camera people here. People have gone bananas here. It is just haywire what is happening here. Sydney has got the Games. I've seen Chinese people leaping off the top story of the casino, you know, with weights tied around their necks. Life is not worth living anymore. I've seen the bloke from Manchester who poured petrol down his trousers and was asking people for a light, and eventually he got one from an Australian who said, sure, mate, I'll light it for you. We're bugging up the rest of your life. We might as well bugger up you as well. Boom. Went up torch. I've seen people just self-immolating all over the place. But Sydney, you little beauty. Homebush has got it. And there are a lot of people scratching their heads thinking, Homebush, what is it? Where is it? How do I get there? That's what we wanted. People going crazy because of us.
And Roddy McGee, like a Brucey bed. Well, they've got a beautiful song going in the background. I don't know, Karen, whether you and all of Asia can hear it. They're whistling up a tremendous cadenza on the bed flutes. Here it comes now. We better cut back to you there in Homebush, Karen. And remember, in the year 2000, Homebush, it's where it's all happening. From Monaco, back to you, Karen.